right, everyone, today we're going to study three very useful verbs in English: make, let, and allow. These verbs are important because we use them to talk about obligation and permission, but they have different meanings and, very importantly, different structures. So you really need to pay attention not only to the meaning, but also to the grammar that follows each verb. Let's start with make. We use make when we force someone to do something, so there is no choice. It expresses obligation, and usually it sounds quite strong. The structure is very important. We say make plus object plus base verb without to. For example, the teacher made us repeat the exam, or my boss makes me stay until 7 p.m. Notice that after make, we say stay, not to stay. Another example could be, the coach made the players train harder, which shows that they didn't have a choice. Now let's move to let. We use let when we give permission, so the meaning is the opposite of make. The structure is similar. Let plus subject plus base verb, again without to. For example, my mother lets the dog sleep on the sofa, or my parents didn't let me go out late when I was younger. So here, someone is allowed to do something. Let is more informal, and it is very common in spoken English. Next, we have allow, which has a very similar meaning to let because it is also used for permission. However, the structure is different, and it is often more formal. With allow, we use allow plus object plus to plus verb. For example, the teacher allows us to eat in class, or my sister doesn't allow her son to eat sweets. So here, we must remember to use to before the verb. That's a key difference between let and allow. Now, let's look at the passive forms, which are also very common, especially in formal English. In the passive voice, the focus changes from the person who does the action to the person who receives it. With make and allow, we can form passive structures, but with let, we cannot. So we don't say I am let go, we say I am allowed to go. When we use make in the passive, the structure changes to be made to plus verb. For example, I was made to stay late, or they were made to show their ID. Notice that in the passive, we now use to, which is different from the active form. This is something students often find confusing. With allow, the passive form is be allowed to plus verb. For example, we are allowed to eat in class, or children are not allowed to watch that film. This structure is very common when we talk about rules. For example, you are not allowed to use your phone during the exam. Let's compare an active and a passive sentence to make this clearer. In the active voice, we say, my boss makes me work late. In the passive, this becomes, I am made to work late. Or, the teacher allows us to use dictionaries becomes, we are allowed to use dictionaries. As you can see, the meaning is the same, but the focus is different. Now, let's connect this with some adjectives ending in ed and ing, which are also very useful. When we talk about feelings, we use ed adjectives like I feel tired, I am stressed, I am relaxed. These describe how a person feels. For example, I feel exhausted because my boss made me work late. On the other hand, ing adjectives describe the situation or thing. For example, working late is tiring, or that rule is confusing. So we can say, I am confused because the rules are confusing. So to finish, remember this. Make is for strong obligation and uses object plus verb. Let is for permission and also uses object plus verb. And allow is for permission but uses object plus to plus verb. In the passive, we use be made to and be allowed to. If you practice these structures and pay attention to the form, you'll be able to use them correctly and naturally.